I'm on the lookout for the perfect halter neck top, and honestly I have not found one yet, so I decided to make one myself. Sometimes I forget that when you can sew, you can do whatever you want, so that's what we're going to be doing today. Welcome to Aiclo, my name is Fabiana, and today we're going to be sewing a satin halter neck top. And I'm going to bring you with me throughout the entire inspiration, pattern making process, and sewing process. So let's get started. Here's my inspiration. I think I have a pretty clear idea of what I want to make, and I actually already have the perfect fabric for it, but I'm sure I want to make a halter neck top with a thick collar like this one's. I think it's so elegant, so beautiful, and it's actually something that's quite trending right now. I also really love the asymmetrical shape of some of these tops, and something that all of these have in common is that they're longer than a normal top. Just like this ones, you can see they reach below the hips, so maybe I'll try and do that as well. And I'm going to be making it in satin fabric. I think this type of tops you can make in many different fabrics, but I'm sticking with satin. So let's see what I can find on Aiclo to make this pattern. I already have the fabric for it, and I just love this color. It's like an icy baby blue. It's a satin fabric, it's really thin, but it's super soft, and I think it will work perfectly for this. I'm still not sure if I want to cut the pattern on the bias or not, because I think it would work really well with what I want to make. So let's just see how it goes and what works best with the pattern. Okay, now that we're on Aiclo, we can start with our pattern. Here I already have an idea, but if you need some inspiration, make sure to check out the full catalog. Here you can find ideas of what you can make with all of the patterns that you can find on Aiclo, which is absolutely amazing. But I'm just going to go ahead and get started with the pattern right away. So I'm just clicking on Direct Editor Access, and I'm going to look for a similar top as the one I'm going to make. As you can see, I have tons of options of many clothing items that I could make. But since I'm looking for a shirt, let me see. Okay, here on tops, we have one that's quite similar, and I think I can adapt it to look as my inspiration. You have the option in case you want to make it in knitted fabric or just in woven fabric. I'm going to be choosing this one. And straight away you can see in the avatar how it's going to look, but you can also choose to use your own avatar. In case you haven't created your own avatar, it's pretty easy. You can just name it and you'll just add your body measurements. These are the required measurements, but there's also additional measurements that you can add if you want. So I'm just going to be selecting mine, and it's looking pretty good. I'm going to be using a light baby blue fabric, so let's choose that already. And it's pretty light, so something like this. And now I have a more clear idea of how it's going to actually look. Okay, so you can customize the length. You can make it a cropped top or even a tunic, just like this one. But I do want it to be more hip length, just maybe a little bit longer. I think something like this is more like the inspo pictures. And over here you can click on advanced mode and you can immediately see everything you can also change, like the stretchability of your fabric. You could also change these measurements. If you click here, you'll see what measurements they are. And you can see how it'll fit, where it'll be tighter, in the pattern. And something I really love is that you can use this textile calculator to know how much fabric you're going to need. My fabric is 150 centimeters wide, and it tells me it needs a little bit less than a meter. So I usually just screenshot this and take it with me when I'm going to buy fabric. And once that's ready, you can just go ahead and save your project, and you can download your pattern. There's tons of formats in which you can download your pattern, but I'll just select a PDF in US letter, and you can even change the seam allowance. So I can just go ahead and download it. I also wanted to show you how the document looks with your pattern. The first page has this test box, just like any other digital pattern, and here's how you would have to build the pattern. And all of the pages are enumerated already, so it's pretty easy to do. Now I'm just going to go ahead and print it out. So I'll show you once I'm done with that. Okay, so I just printed and finished assembling the pattern, and here's how it looks. As you can see, we have the welt over there, the front and the back. So I'm just gonna cut it and show you a small modification I want to make the top I want. Okay, so now I've cut it out completely. We have the front and back, and the welt is the piece that will tie around my neck. As you can see, this one's not long enough for it to be a bow on the back, so I'm going to lengthen it. And for it to be more like my inspiration pics, I'm also going to make it a little bit wider. These patterns also come with some notches to help you as guides. So for example, here we have a side notch that will match with the side notch from the back panel. And on the welt, we have these notches that also help us line up the front and back pieces. And for finishing the top, to finish the top, I could either make some facings the same size for the arm size, or I could completely line it. Okay, so now I'm going to be cutting the welt, and as I said earlier, I do want to make it longer and wider. So I measured from the folded edge of the fabric upwards 8 centimeters. And for the length, I added about 80 centimeters because that's what I'm calculating I'll need to make the bow on the back. So basically, you'll be left with this really long rectangle. I've just finished cutting all of my pieces. So now I have my front, my back, my welt, which goes on the neckline. And since I'm not going to line it, I made 2 facings for the armholes. So 2 for the front and 2 for the back. And I cut an extra piece. It's a rectangle basically, but it's also a facing for the center back of the top, because it needs an opening for when you pull it over. It needs to fit into your head. So I'm going to be making a small opening there that gets closed when you close the tie on the back. Okay, so that's basically ready. So now we can get started sewing. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is grab my facings, and I'm going to overcast the outer edge, which is this one, and I'm going to do that for all 4. I say overcast, but I'm actually just doing a zigzag stitch since I don't have a serger. And I'm also going to do that for the facing I told you guys for the back, and I'll do that for these 3 sides, so not for the top. Okay, so usually zigzag stitches like bunch up your fabric, but once you press it down, it looks so nice again. So I always like to do that before I continue sewing. This one's the back and this one's the front. As you can see, I've already pinned in place the facings on the front. And that's what you're going to pin in place. Okay, so here there's a really important step that I don't want to miss on, and it's basically understitching. I'm going to move the seam allowance over to the facing, and I'm going to top stitch as close to the seam as I can. And this just helps so that the facing won't flip over to the right side of the garment. Okay, so right now I have my back panel, and also this piece I told you I was going to cut. And I'm going to show you how you're going to get this top to fit through your head and tie it on the back. To do that, we have to make an opening on the back. So what I'm going to do is just find the center. This measures 18 centimeters, so I'll just mark the center and 1 centimeter to each side, just like this, and about 15 centimeters downward, like here. And we're basically going to do like a V shape. So you're basically going to be left with this, and you're going to draw the same on these small facing we cut earlier. And now we're going to face them right sides together. Just make sure that the lines you drew align together. And now all there's left to do is follow the line we made. So starting here, down to here, and up here. Now that I have this here, we're going to cut carefully up to wherever it lets you. And now you're going to move the facing to the back and press it in place. I've just pressed it down, and look how nice the opening looks. You just have to make sure that you take your time with it so it looks really polished and professional. And now it's time to gather both this back panel and the front panel. Okay, so now it's time to make some gathering stitches on the neckline of both the front and back panels. And if you've never done gathering stitches, I'm going to show you my favorite way to gather fabric. It's really easy, and I think it just gives the best results out of everything. You don't need another foot or anything, just to set up a few stitches on your machine, and that's it. So let me show you. Okay, so to gather fabric, it's better to make more than one gathering row. So starting from wherever you're going to gather, in my case, I'm going to gather from here up to here. I'm going to make one stitch about 5 millimeters from the edge, just a straight stitch up to here, and then another one 1 centimeter from the edge. So you'll be left with 2 gathering stitches. What's really important is that you do not backstitch at the start nor end of the stitch of neither of them. So make sure not to backstitch. Now I'm going to show you the settings that you need on your machine. First thing is you need a straight stitch. So I'm going to set it to number 2, which is this one. And I'm going to make the stitch length at about 5. So almost as large as you can go on your machine. You can leave the stitch with whatever you have already. And you're going to go to your tension. Mine's usually at 4, but now I'm going to lower it up to 1, or even between 0 and 1. We need a really low tension. And now you can just sew the stitches as normal. Here I sewed the first line, and you can see how the fabric gathered already on its own. And when you're going to cut off the thread, just make sure you leave a longer tail. And now we're going to sew the second row. These stitches don't have to be perfect because we're going to end up removing them, so don't worry about them not being perfect. Just make sure they're not stepping one over the other. Now I have my 2 gathering stitches, as you can see, and we're just going to pull here from the top thread. So grab the top thread of each stitch, just like this, and you can start gathering your fabric. That's why we need a really low tension so that it glides with the fabric. Okay, let me show you what we're going to do now. Basically, I just grabbed the welt, marked the notches, and I made sure that I gathered the front the same width as the notches and the same with the back. And now I'm just going to sew the welt onto the front and back panels. Okay, so I wanted to update you on how it's going, and I'm really excited because it's looking so beautiful. Right now, I'm almost done with the neckline. As you can see, I've attached the front panel and the back panel, And you can already tell that this is what I left for tying the bow on the back and the opening on the back so that you can fit it through your head. Now, basically one of the last steps I'm going to do is attach the top on the sides. So I'm just gonna pin that together with the right side of the fabric facing each other, and I'm going to sew the sides. And after that, I'm only left with the hems. So we're pretty much almost done. I'm thinking that for the hem, I'm going to do a really delicate hem. We actually included a small and quick tutorial on how to hem these types of fabrics on our last video, making the Valentine's Day dress. So I definitely recommend checking it out. And I just think that would look best on this top as well. And look how beautiful the top turned out. I'm so in love with how delicate and flowy it looks, especially because I cut it on the bias. I think that was a perfect and a great decision, but only if you're using satin fabric. Remember that you can adapt these patterns to any fabrics that you'd like to use. So if you'd like, for example, maybe cotton fabric, that would also work as well. I'm so impressed because from the actual avatar with the garment on, you can see how it looks exactly the same on me. So you can really tell that what you have on the avatar is what you're going to have on your body. I did decide to make it a little bit longer, but you could also make it into a mini dress or even a longer dress if you'd like, or you can even make a more cropped version. I really wanted to make a thicker welt, and that's what I did. And I also lengthened it so I could tie it on the back. But if you don't want to do that, you can do whatever width you like, and you can close it on the back with just some buttons. And before I leave, I just wanted to remind you that we're having a sale on Aiclo all throughout the month of February, and you can get 40% off all current plans. And if you use code SEW20, you get an extra 20% off. So if you'd like to know more about that, just check out the description below. Don't forget, you can also find us on Instagram, so make sure to check us out there too. And that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!